Hi students, this is continuation for the previous session. There were some technical issues like my screen got flickering, so I stopped the session abruptly. So, uh, so let's see some key points in the previous session so that we can attach that to that one and then finish that one and move to the next topic. The next topic will be psychology as a discipline. I'll be covering that topic in this session, and we'll also see some important activities or discussions in this session. Okay, let's start. So, this is the one. Here, if you can see, we can recall the definition. So, psychology is defined formally as a science which studies mental processes, experiences, and behavior in different contexts. Psychology is defined formally as a science because uh, it is based on the facts, not on the you can say it is not a common sense. It is science. So it is based on the facts which are like research based on a question way, introspective way. So these are the ways, and that's how these the definition psychology as a science, particularly studying mental processes, experiences, and behaviors in different contexts. Even we discussed the context that is biological and social context. Even it can be individual and social context. Okay, so we have seen the mental processes, experiences, and we are discussing the behavior. So let's see that behavior part. So here particularly as we are discussing, there are two contexts. Okay, in that context, we can see the behavior as overt and covert. Overt is, we can link it to O. O is outside. The behavior which is outside is overt behavior. Covert behavior is internal. Okay, you can relate that keyword, and then that outside behaviors, all the behaviors covert or overt are associated with the triggered by some stimulus in the environment or change that happen internally. See, if you can see the emotions, okay, if you can see the emotions part, emotions means which are very internal to your feelings. The emotions which you are undergoing are related to you only. If you are angry, someone will experience fear. Okay, that is different. And an angry can be also, the other person may also react to you, and that can also be an angry. Or some people may also take it in a lighter way, and it can be a fun, right? The emotions, but the emotion related to you is angry. Okay, so that is what how it is dependent, because someone has behaved in such a way that you got an angry, that is which is emotion which is internal to you, but the what are the situations caused are outside one. So so that is what it is saying. There can be the behavior, the causes of that particular behavior or the emotion can be outside or internal. If you get some pain in the body which is very internal to you, but what is the pain, where you feel the pain, and you feel some sadness, sickness, illness, sadness, you may also fear what is going with your mind, with your body. So that's how. So they, all the behaviors, either covert or overt, are associated with or triggered by some stimulus in the environment or changes that happen internally, environmental or internally. So there are some other examples added here. You may see a trigger and run, or think that there is a tiger and decided to flee. Flee is like running, fight or flight. So if you, what you can say, there are some safari parks, like in South Africa or in some parts of the world. You are allowed to take a trip through the jungle or the park, zoo park, in which the animals are living freely in some confined and confined area, so that you can go into it with the help of some professionals. You can go there and enjoy the ride. So there, if something doesn't happen as expected, like there are some incidents that the animals may react odd and come to the nearest to the vehicle. So see how you react to it. Maybe if you are safe, but still you feel like running, right? And generally in these areas like Indian conditions, there will be some snakes, some, what you can say, scorpions. There are few animals still, like during near the flood season, there will be like crocodiles. What do you see? You decide first. You try to like you get some surprise, like you don't know what to do, and then try to run. If there is no possibility of running, you may fight. Next, so some psychologists study behavior as an association between stimulus and response. Both stimulus and response can be internal or external. So behavior, as said earlier, like overt behavior and covert behavior, internal and external. Here there are another keywords: stimulus and response. What do you mean by stimulus? Stimulus is like, what you can say, it is the stimulant. It is like the action part. Because of it only there is a response or reaction. So what you call stimulus is the source of the behavior. Response is the response to the particular stimulus or reaction to the stimulus. Stimulus, you can tell it as a source. Like as we discussed in the example, if in the previous example, tiger, he is the stimulus. Some as we said, discussed the example of a body, some pain in the body, it is the stimulus. But what we are getting, the emotion, the reaction or the response you are giving to the stimulus is the response. That is R. His S and R, there are two psychologists who explained you used these concepts and particularly worked on behavior. We will be discussing them in later sessions. Okay, and if you can see, so these stimulus, as I said, these stimulus can be internal or external. Okay, next, let's move to the, as I said, next we will be moving to the psychology as a discipline. Psychology as a discipline, as we have discussed above, psychology studies behavior, experiences, and mental processes. That is what we are calling as a definition in the for this part. So, what do you mean by discipline? So, discipline is, I think I have to take an additional presentation is available for this. Also, which is discussed in the earlier videos. Even you can refer that presentation. But now, as for the sake of like material should be understood for the student in the overall way, so that I'm not taking the key concept, I'm explaining the material. Because if you recall, if you read this material, you can completely understand it. By making this material as a basic understand, you can refer to the other materials and get some point from them, and you can make the clear notes on your own. Okay, so as we discussed, this is the definition which we like discussed earlier. So it seeks to understand and explain how mind works and how different mental processes results in the different behaviors. So based on, as we defined psychology as a study of mental processes, experiences, and behavior. Based on this study, we we can explain and try to understand. We define and we can explain. Like we defined in three terms, and then expanding these terms, understanding these terms will give you more knowledge about psychology, right? So that's how. So it seeks to understand and explain how the mind works and how different mental process results in behavior. Particularly, here it is concentrating on the mind part. Even though the brain is the tool available, but without brain, I may think for the consciousness, it is not possible for the mind to work. So as I said, mind is dependent, or they both are interdependent on each other. So mind and brain work together. Okay, so when we observe others as a lay or common persons, our own points of view or our ways of understanding the world influence our interpretations of the behavior and experiences. When we observe others as a lay or a common person, our own points of view or our ways of understanding the world influence our interpretations of their behaviors. And so when you try to understand other person, what are all known here in psychology? You know about like experience, behavior, and mental process. Mental process is the understanding. What is it next to it? There is experience and behavior. The experiences which are learned so far in your growth in the lifetime will make you understand that particular person. That's what it said. And that particular experience influence your understanding. If previously, if you had some negative or bad experience, the world around you is not as expected for the other person, the way of understanding you is also different. If you can see, like there are people to save snakes, animals, and all, but there are people kill the animals. The point of view is different, the experience, the way they grew, the experiences, the past there. So even the experiences you have will have influence on the understanding of the other person. Okay, and that's how. But psychologists, as a trained professionals, there will be like minimizing such behavior biases. You can see the biases. You are not biased. As a trained psychologist, as you can understand the mental processes, behaviors, you may understand, try to understand without a bias, without favoring some other person. You stay neutral. You stay confident about what you are getting. So in this explanations of behavior and experiences in where psychologists try to minimize such biases in their explanations of behavior, and they also try to ask in a scientific method, what is the cause, how did you experience this, what are the reactions or the response for such behavior. They try to understand these things in a very scientific way, in a proven question method, not as a layman or in a common sense. They try to understand in a particular way, which is applied for many and made it as a standard method. Some do so by seeking to make their analysis scientific and objective. Even people while examining or treating patients, they also get some experience, right? Based on these experience, they try to analyze scientific and objective. Others seek to explain behavior from the point of view or experiencing persons because they think, sorry, they think that subjectivity is necessary aspect of human experience. Even in the earlier, I explained about subjective and objective. Here, I would like you to recall that one. And particularly, others seeking to explain the behavior from the point of view of the experiencing persons because They think that subjectivity is a necessary aspect of human behavior. So subjectivity, who is the subject here? If the client is telling the behavior, who is the subject? The subject is the client himself. But who is the subject hearing that one? The subject then is the person who is listening, particularly like a counselor or a psychologist. Like, so the subject will be interchanging. The person who is experiencing the behavior, who is telling, who is exhibiting the behavior, who is explaining that behavior is the subject. The person who is trying to understand is the object. Okay, and in the Indian tradition, self-reflection and analysis of your conscious experience is held to be the major source of psychological understanding. In particularly Eastern traditions and coming to the Asiatic countries, in India, as a land of Vedas and Upanishads, and having some rich culture over the texts and diverse cultures around the world, the languages spoken in India are as many as in the world. So that's how. But what is the tradition they follow is understanding the internal, understanding the journey to inside, journey to the own self. Okay, and the consciousness related to it. Realizing your own self and own behavior is a part of Indian tradition, like Indian way of study. But many Western psychologists has also begun to emphasize the role of self-knowledge and self-knowledge in understanding human behavior and experience. As I said earlier, the source can be internal, the source can be biological, and then even westernized as as we will see in the next sessions, like how Western psychology has developed. It is mostly on the external behavior, on the environmental side or the outside, the source as outside. But Indians, as they see as the internal as the source, like you are the cause of your own behavior, they see. Even Western psychologists try to adopt this one these days. Okay, so that's what it is saying. Regardless of the differences in the way of psychologists go about the study, mental process, and again they are recalling the difference. They seek to understand and explain them in a systematic and verifiable manner. Even though they try to, as psychology as a discipline and as a science, they try to understand and explain them in a systematic and a verifiable manner. Science, it should be replicable, it should be based on facts. So a psychology is being a science, it should be a systematic study, it should be a proper study, and it should be verifiable, and it should be it can replicable. Like if you find the results, you can see the one. Okay, psychology, though it is very old knowledge discipline, as you said, it has basis to the philosophical, and it is a young science. If one were to take the year founding of the first library of the psychology, it is 1879 in Leipzig. Yes, as we said, in the earlier sessions, we said psychology has its roots from philosophy. Even it is as old as like understanding human being, as human being is lakhs of years old. The brains which are we are working together today are years old. We have the knowledge of very long years. So in such a way, it is, but the study and establishing psychology as a science by taking its philosophical roots, it is established as a science from very recent, that is 1871, by Wilhelm Wundt. Who Wundt is the person who first started the laboratory in Leipzig, Germany. Okay. However, what kind of science is psychology still remains a matter of debate, particularly because of the new interfaces in that it have emerged in recent times. Because as psychology relates to the human behavior, very like as we are confining it to human behavior, I'm telling you there are different types of psychology, animal psychology, particularly environmental psychology. There are different types of psychology, particularly human related. As we try to, human beings are the above the pyramid of the organisms. So we try to see. it's still a debate because, as I said, it deals with the internal and external. There are many factors involved in studying psychology. So, there, however, what kind of science is psychology still remains a matter of debate because it is still an expanding. As I said in the earlier, knowledge discipline is it is not defined. It is defined for the time being, but it is expanding from time to time. Okay. Psychology is generally categorized as a social science. Here, they try to define it as a social science. Generally, as even we will try to understand it as a natural science and a social science, it is related to arts and it is related to science. How they are defining it is a social science. Science is a study. It is a study. So, and then, but it should not come to you as a surprise that not only in the other countries but India also, it is also subjects of study offered in the faculty of science, both at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels. It is also like if you are a student, as your student, it is also noted that even though as a part of regular curriculum, if you try to continue your study and particularly if you have interest in the subject, it is they are telling you that it is the course is offered at the undergraduate and postgraduate levels. Okay, we'll try to see the next part of this one. Many students go on to earn BSc or MSc. Many students go on to earn a BSc or MSc degree in the universities. In fact, the two of the most sought emerging disciplines which continuously borrow from psychology are neuroscience and computer science. As you're studying like a graduation level, either BSc or MSc from the in the higher education, but most sorted areas are neuroscience and computer science, as we are very much connected to the digital world, and we are this is a area which is related to computer science. Like computer is a reflection of human being. Like they are trying to add a computer to be the for the benefit of human being, like to ease that particular behavior or the needs of the human being, they invented the computer. And then, as we already discussed, it is about the biological or internal, that is which is related to the neuroscience. Okay, some of the us would be aware of the fast developing brain imaging techniques like fMRI and EEG. Electroencephalogram and magnetoresonance imaging is also the techniques which we try to understand brain, its construction, and what are the reactions happening in the brain when the behavior is happening in the human being. So these are the techniques which makes it possible to study brain process in the real time. This is what I told you, when they are actually taking place. When you are thinking something, when you are experiencing brain, the reactions in the brain, the work of the brain will be recorded in the you can say like in the in study of neuroscience, what is happening in the brain. Similarly, in IT areas, both human-computer interaction and artificial intelligence cannot be possibly grow without psychological knowledge and cognitive process. That, as I said, human beings trying to work on these computers to ease their life, to ease what is the work done by the human beings should be done by the computer. So, in order to and to work with these technologies, you have to understand the human behavior. That is how, particularly how the thinking process, reading process, listening, what is related to particularly you have to understand this cognitive processes. Cognitive process is like higher mental processes which are related to brain functioning and mind functioning, particularly reactions to the brain, which is mind functioning. Thus, psychology as a discipline has two parallel streams, one which makes use of method in physical and biological sciences, and other which makes Physical and biological are other, which makes use of method of social and cultural sciences in studying various psychological and social phenomena. Okay, so as we are saying, it is biological and environmental. It is overt and covert. Even the discipline is also based on the two methods, which is biological, which is physics, and you could say neuro, and then it is the cognitive process of the behavior or the social science. It is based on the various psychological phenomena. Okay, environmental based. These streams sometimes converge only to drift apart and go there in separate ways, even though it is related to particular study of the psychology in two different aspects. There may be chances they converge and diverge to be studied in two different paths. That's what we're saying. In the first case, psychology considers it's a discipline which focuses largely on biological principles to explain human behavior. Okay, as I said earlier, like it is biological and social, like internal and external. It has two phases. In the first phase, they try to understand the human being as the first source of behavior, or the stimulus is because the human body is existing, the mind exists. As the brain exists, the mind exists. Both are interrelatable. Okay, it assumes that all behavioral phenomena has causes which can be discovered if we can collect data systematically under controlled conditions. Here he is trying to make us understand regarding the experimental method or methods of study of psychology. Okay, if we can collect the data systematically, if we can make the behavior into the data, what is happening in the mental processes, if we can study this, we can understand the human behavior very effectively. All behavioral phenomena have causes which can be discovered if we can collect data systematically under controlled conditions. Here are the aim of the researcher. Here, the aim of the researcher is to know the cause and effect relationship so that the prediction of behavioral phenomena, phenomena can be made and behavioral can be made if need to be. As in controlled conditions, which he talked in the earlier, in the controlled conditions, if there are chances to control the behavior, like if a client comes to the business customer, if he is angry with, if he is not satisfied with the service, he may improve the service. Like he may react to the customer client and tell him that yes sir, we will be trying to improve it, like in this example. And even while during the experiment, if we can understand what is going to happen and what is going on, we can modify it, we can tweak the behavior. Like even we can adjust the conditions. Like if we, there is a beautiful example, we will try to what you can say, we can try to control the temperature by air conditioning. You are conditioning the air to be cool. Okay, so that's how. And then moving to the controlled if need to be. One, on the other hand, psychology as a social science focuses on how behavioral phenomena can be explained in terms of interaction that takes place between the person and socio-cultural context of which he is part of. As we are speaking of external behavior, environment, here the basic thing here we need to understand is that it is as a biological science, as a part of internal behavioral study, as a physical study, there is also other aspect, that is social science, which focuses on the interaction between the person and environment. That's what he is taking, the interaction between the person and the cultural context. If he is in a social condition talking to a group of people, he tries to understand that behavior. Each behavioral phenomena is assumed to have multiple cases. Let us now discuss these two streams separately. The next session we will be discussing, like as a natural science, as I introduced that one, and social science we will be discussing them very clearly in the next sessions. Each behavioral phenomenon is assumed to have multiple causes. So, as a natural cause, there will be, as a natural behavior, it has different causes. As a social behavior on the scientific social science base, it has some separate causes, and we will try to study them in the next session. So that's how I end this session, and the activities related here, like you try to understand, write the mental behaviors, and what are the experiences, what are the behaviors, like try to study the overt and covert behavior, and you can check with the natural science and the social science. You can think in that way, and if any queries, you can write to the particular mail IDs. Okay, thank you.